This episode of Two Guys on Mobile is brought to you by Pontiflex App Leads. Go to www.appleads.com. And by Macadamian, helping companies transform ideas into compelling, market-ready products customers love. You can find them at macadamian.com. It's time for Two Guys on Mobile, episode number 24. 24. This is recorded live between Jeff Bacon and myself this August 8th, 2011. Nice sweltering day in the city of Ottawa. Just want to remind you that this episode is actually brought to you by Macadamian. And these guys help companies transform ideas into compelling, market-ready products that people and users love. Go to macadamian.com. We love the fact that they're supporting us. Thank you guys for Macadamian. We really appreciate it. This is episode number 24. My name is Rob Woodbridge, found at untether.tv or at Rob Woodbridge on Twitter. I'm always joined by the incomparable and sometimes incomprehensible Mr. Jeff Bacon. Jeff, found at bacononthego.com and at the Suave Hog on the Twitter sphere. Jeff, it's been a while, buddy, but I'm glad we could finally connect over this great summer. Welcome back.
Yes, thanks, Rob. Yeah, it has been a while since we chatted and since we did one of these podcasts, so it's good to get back in the groove.
Well, I love the fact that, I think what's happened over the last little while is that the news has slowed for these terrible months terrible month, I think, between, mid-July and mid-August. There's not a lot going on. People are enjoying their summers. I'm getting a lot of bounce backs, except for those intrepid entrepreneurs that are out there building their businesses. And we're going to hopefully talk to some of the issues that have happened over the last couple of weeks, the ones that we missed. But there are three very pressing stories that I think that are kind of top of brain. The first one is we're going to talk about RIM and their operating system, their release of the 5 new products and OS 7, what that means. We're also going to talk about Instagram and their 7 million users and 150 million downloads and what that means. And we're also going to talk about this great little story that we saw on GigaOM around app makers relying on return customers. And this is based on a report done by IDC and Appcelerator. And we're going to cover all that. We're going to see if we can do it in a very short period of time, so let's get right into it. When it came to big news last week, especially in Canada, it all centered around this company called RIM, Research in Motion. They announced, obviously, that they are releasing 5 new devices, and those 5 new devices are going to be carrying something called OS 7. And, I think that there's a lot of questions around whether or not this is relevant, what this means, or if this is just a stopgap until the QNX operating system. So what does this mean, Jeff?
Well, it's RIM kind of finally getting their company back in the vision that they normally do of having new devices come out on a regular basis. In this case, they've backlogged a number of devices up because, 1, they were waiting for OS 7 to be ready, and 2, they were trying to get the playbook out in the first half of this year. And the entire company for the last year or so has been, pretty uniquely and solely focused on getting this playbook product out to market, promoting it, getting developers on board, and getting the word out about it. And I think they did a good job of getting the word out about Playbook. Certainly, I think almost anybody I ran into, whether they know tech or not, has heard of this BlackBerry tablet that's out there. And now that they've got that in place and they've got developers working on it and they've got some initiatives running there to encourage more developers to run on Playbook, they are moving back towards their core competency of getting devices out that business users and BlackBerry users themselves love. So I think the biggest part of this is 5 devices that really touch upon what BlackBerry users like on their BlackBerry.
Yeah, and these devices, there's a new Bold, there's a new BlackBerry Torch. I guess they're having 3 models, one with a slide-out QWERTY. These are the touchscreen models. I actually, when I was in Toronto last week, I got to handle the new Bold, the 9900. I was a big Bold fan. I mean, I actually stood in line at Rogers. It was a short line, but I stood in line and paid $500 for the very first version of the Bold back in the day, and it was at that point the single best device that I've ever used, and I talk about that quite often. And this device. The Bold is a touchscreen QWERTY device, the 9900, and it's sleek, it's thin, it feels solid. It's a well-developed device, and you know it's RIM. You know, no surprises, but still a very, very, very nice device. And I don't know if you know, I'm not familiar with BlackBerry OS. I have abandoned completely the BlackBerry device since the version 5 of the OS, and what I found very clearly was that it wasn't intuitive at all. I mean, the UI still sucks ass, and that's one of the biggest challenges that BlackBerry has with OS 7. It's probably better, but the browsing experience apparently is 40% faster than OS 6. It's 50% faster than OS 5 or anything before that, and it's more standards compliant. It's a richer experience. All these things say, yeah, we're on the right track, but is this just a stopgap? One of the key things was NFC enabled, but maybe it's a little too early. Is this a stopgap, Jeff? I'm not feeling the love yet.
Well, I mean, sure, they're not going to not release devices for 3 years while they wait for QNX to be ready for smartphone devices. So, is it a stopgap? I mean, you can call it a stopgap if you want, but it is continuing on the line of devices. It's like when Nokia just stopped producing Symbian devices, and everybody was in an uproar. The resellers, the carriers, the customers, because they're like, okay, yeah, you might be moving to Windows Phone 7, but we still want Symbian devices in the meantime. They got a lot of heat over that decision, and I don't think it was the right decision for them. So BlackBerry is saying, yeah, we are continuing to produce devices on this code line. It's a popular code line. We sold almost 14 million devices in the last quarter on older code lines than this one is here. So we are providing upgrades to the OS that users have been asking for. We're providing devices that are above the devices we have now, that have better features on them, and they are good devices. Everybody at BlackBerry World in May played around with the 9900. They had them out for display, and while that's a biased audience of pro BlackBerry people, I don't remember anybody saying anything negative about their experience on the BlackBerry 9900 there. So, and that's what they're targeting. They're saying, BlackBerry users, here you go. Here's your device upgrade. I know you only upgrade devices once every 12 to 18 months. So 12 to 18 months from now, when you're done with this device, we'll have one with QNX available for it. But no one can say for sure the date that QNX will be available on smartphones. They're targeting to have devices available in the first half of next year. But who knows if that's going to hit or not? Who knows if there's going to be delays or hardware problems or software problems that happen there. So there's no reason not to put these devices on market that are better devices than what are there now and sell them to BlackBerry users.
I understand that, but what about the guys who have been saying that the devices that they've released, these 5 devices, are so 2010, and we're kind of at the end of 2011 when these things actually start to make a material difference, and into 2012. And the pending launches of all these other devices, is this maybe these were the devices that they should have put out 6 months ago instead of the playbook, perhaps? I'm not sure, but do you think like that, or do you just think, look, we're plotting ahead, we got to get these devices out, we are going to worry about the QNX operating system, the next generation of BlackBerries when we can. Right now, this is all we can do.
Well, I mean, there's been people that have not been BlackBerry fans that have said that every BlackBerry device since about the Bold, maybe the last one, in which people didn't say, oh, this is so last year on it, right? So, I mean, of course people are going to say that. People say about every BlackBerry device, whether they look at the device or not. Immediately they look at the form factor on it and they say, oh, this isn't what's hot right now. What's hot is touchscreen only devices or something. So I'm not surprised a lot of people are saying that, and there's some validity to that, in that RIM generally doesn't produce devices that are on the bleeding edge of what pop culture, social culture, iPhone devices are doing in terms of a UI perspective, but it doesn't mean there aren't 14 million people that want this device upgrade. So I think the thing you have to look at is saying, okay, does this device appeal to users who did not like BlackBerry before? Well, maybe a few. Maybe these devices add a few features that there's a few extra people like that didn't like before. But what they do is appeal to all the users who have BlackBerries right now.
Right.
And so that's what RIM is doing. They're saying, look, we are not going to take the Nokia route and basically cut the legs out from our market share while we do this transition. We are going to support our existing BlackBerry customers for now and into the future, because when the QNX operating system comes out, there isn't going to be 100,000 applications available for it. So they're going to say, look, you're going to have two choices. You can continue with the BlackBerry operating system 7, and I'm sure there'll be a 7.1 and probably a 7.2 as it evolves as well over the next 12 to 18 months. When you sell into governments, you have to guarantee some long-term support for what you're selling into there. And RIM sells tons into governments and large organizations. So they have a financial and a contractual responsibility to keep going with this product line here. It doesn't mean that 5 years from now they're still going to have BlackBerry OS on the market. What it means is they're going to transition people from BlackBerry OS to the Tableau OS, not just do a hard cold turkey stop and go.
And that makes sense. I mean, poor suffering BlackBerry users haven't had a new piece of hardware in over a year now. So there's got to be a pent-up demand that's going to, I mean, it's either got to be a pent-up demand or it's going to really indicate the demand for these, for BlackBerry devices going forward, because there hasn't been anything released. Everybody diverted their attention to the playbook. This is exactly as you said. This is now 5 devices. This is really where RIM shows its stuff. And these are corporate devices, especially the Bold. There was I think it was Kevin Rose or MG Siegler from TechCrunch did this poll about what your next device was going to be that you bought. And number one, so this is just a generalized poll. When I saw it, maybe there was 4,000 people who filled it out, but it's a pretty good indication. These are forward thinkers in the technology community that are that follow MG. So it broke down and it said that roughly 48% of the people were going to actually go out and buy an Android device. Then close behind it was probably around 40% was going to be an iPhone and an iPhone 5. RIM came in at about 4%, which kind of is indicative of some of the feelings out there around RIM's future. And that's one of the challenges that they have, is that the devices might be kick-ass. They might actually be great devices, hardware-wise, screen resolution, camera resolution, everything else. But it's the perception that it's a sinking ship that will keep consumers, anyways, the fickle consumer, away from it, especially around the momentum that Android's had. It's just you just hope that they're bailing fast enough to be able to get out of this. I saw a great article in the National Post here in Canada. It quoted Patrick Spence, who I think is the VP of worldwide sales now, and he was pragmatic, optimistic, but in a balanced way, right? And that's what I appreciate about this new group of leaders underneath the co-CEOs, is that, listen, they know. I think that while there's criticism against the CEOs about not understanding what business they're in or what reality is, I think the team that they've got surrounding them are kind of the reality brokers of what's going on in this space, and they're doing a good job of kind of mitigating that or managing that. But still, so much rides on the next year for this company, starting with these 5 devices. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, I don't know the demographics of people who took the poll that you're referring to, and
nobody does. I assume, it's an anonymous poll, right? So
what? Right, but what website? What website did you say it was on?
Oh, so this was on TechCrunch. So this is MG
right.
MG Siegler.
So all I'd say is, and I know I often come off as a RIM defender, but that's usually just because there's so much negativity around them. That
somebody's got to defend them.
You got to balance it out. And so if you're talking about, I hate to use the word tech geeks because I'm on that website as well, but their perception of what they're going to buy is different from the general public. If you polled their device print, like 48% doing Android, you probably had that Android percentage way higher than the general public when Android was in its infancy as well.
Yep.
And these BlackBerry devices hadn't yet been announced by RIM when that poll was taken either. So when you're asking people, would you like to buy one of the BlackBerry devices on the market that are, a year and a half to 2 years old, or would you prefer an iPhone 4 or the iPhone 5 that you're pretty confident is coming out this fall, or one of these sleek new Android devices? And by the way, the Galaxy S is a fantastic looking device.
It's an awesome
I just unboxed one the other day. So when you're asking that question, the context is a little bit hard to put in perspective. So I'd say I agree that when you ask lots of segments of the population what device they're going to own, they're going to have market demographics like that, where BlackBerry's only 4%. If you did the same poll amongst corporate users, I think you'd have a massively different percentage, especially if you did the poll right now amongst corporate users who are buying a lot of BlackBerry devices still.
Yep. Well, no doubt about that. But these 5 devices, this is going to be a test. They're going to be rolling out in the fall. I think they've already got some pre-orders up there. The price is going to be a challenge. User experience is going to be something, but I'm glad to see that they've actually got the devices out and rolling. Like, that's the big thing. They're actually announced some new devices. As I'm one of the guys who really firmly believes that, boy oh boy, should they have never have released a playbook so early, and they should have released these devices 6 months ago. The playbook could have come out right now. It still probably wouldn't have made a big difference at this point, except for the fact that they may have hit their numbers. They just may have hit their numbers, and we would be talking about RIM in a completely different light. But we've known that. It was I think a strategic error on their part to try to compete head to head with Apple at this point.
Well, I think the strategic error on their point is something that I constantly hammer at them when I see them in person as well, which is the confidentiality that they hold their strategic plans in. And the fact that they didn't come out and say, you know what, for the next 2 years, here's the plan. Not for the next 6 months, we're going to have Playbook in the market. The next 2 years is Playbook, devices, we're going to take a hit. We're doing this so that 2 years from now, here's what our goals are going to be. Instead, they come out, they don't tell you that in 2 years from now, here's what their goal is going to be. So judge us against that, not judge us against what's now, because you can only judge them against what they tell you. So if they're only providing guidance for 6 months out, you can only say, oh, well, you know what? You dropped from that. But if they're providing guidance 2 years out, saying here's where we're going to get to, and here's what's going to happen, we're going to have a decrease in device sales during this period of time, yeah, you're going to take a hit in the stock market, but you're not going to take the same bad publicity hit, which sometimes causes an overreaction in the stock market.
And that's what we're seeing. We're definitely seeing that right now. It's the same thing with the the U.S. Credit rating being downgraded. It's like the anticipation of the opening bell is going to drive people crazy, and it's going to drive the stock markets down. And we see this all the time. Whether that's worthy or not, that perception is something that they're going to have to get over. So RIM, OS 7, 5 new devices. We'll be watching this, and we're going to see how this progresses and impacts their coming quarter. Definitely. I want to draw attention to a second sponsor here of this great podcast, Two Guys on Mobile, featuring two guys, one being Jeff, one being myself. And this is, I don't know if you've ever tried to build out an application across platform. It's a big challenge these days to get it on Android, get it on iOS, get it on BlackBerry, get it now on WebOS, get it on the web, and probably desktop. That's Windows and Mac. That's where Appcelerator comes in. Their Titanium platform. They have an insane number. There are 25,000 apps that have been deployed. They have millions of folks that are using this development platform, and these guys are being used by eBay, NBC Universal, LA Times, Razorfish, and PayPal. Big companies use this brand. We love the fact that Appcelerator is so active in Untether.tv and Two Guys on Mobile, and we couldn't have done this podcast or continue to do either of those shows without their continued support. We love them. Go and check them out at appcelerator.com. My feeling is you guys have already played with it. And if you haven't, go and take a look at it right now. It's an open source platform. You can start for free. And if you have tried it, make a recommendation. Just go out and recommend it to somebody. Anybody on the streets, we don't care. Just let's spread the word for Appcelerator, appcelerator.com. Thanks, guys, for supporting Two Guys on Mobile. Second story. Not an app built with Appcelerator. However, Instagram... this week, or this past week, announced that they had 7 million active users, or 7 million users. We don't know what that means in active, but that they have had their 150 millionth picture uploaded to their servers. These are staggering numbers. And I think for a 4-person startup that was pretty much left for dead. Their original investors put money into them and then put money into their competition and abandoned them. They managed to raise a good sizable round of money. So they're doing exceptionally well. I love this application. I don't know, Jeff, do you play with it when you have your iPhone, when you're using your iPhone?
I have not used Instagram, but I'm pretty sure that at least a large portion of those 150 million pictures come between you and Paul Winterhalter, who's a co-founder here at BitHeads.
You know what? I wouldn't doubt it, simply because it makes it so easy. It makes all of my pictures look great, including pictures that I'm in. Come on.
Well, those ones look better. I'll give you that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And one of the things, though, that I love about this company is the simplicity. They've done a great job around building a beautiful and simple application. It's not hard. My kids can use it. And any picture that doesn't look good, those are the ones that my kids did take and upload. Not me, of course. But it's unique, and at least it was, and now there's a whole group of competitors in the space. It's become a pretty actively contested space, and it's not the 7 million users and the 150 million photos that have been shared that is the focus of the story. It's the fact that, what do those numbers really mean? We've been accused in the mobile space of being in a bubble, or at the beginning of a bubble, and I believe that reporting numbers like this without a real substantial business model behind it is contributing to the concern of a bubble. It scares the crap out of me when I hear 7 million users, 150 million uploads, and that much in revenue. That scares me to death. And not only that much in revenue, but not even an inkling or a thought, an outward thought about how they're going to turn this into revenue. I actually call this hoarding, right? This is not productive, and it's something that I hope that companies get away from very quickly, or else we're gonna walk ourselves right back into a bubble, and it's going to be as a result of reporting numbers like this. I would trade those 7 million users and 150 million uploads for $1 in revenue, or at least a sign that we're actually going to generate $1 in revenue. And I think they can do it, but they have to be a little bit more open about it, because, man, I like the service and I want it to continue. I like the mobile industry and I want it to continue, and I like our economy to actually move forward, and I don't think that these are helping either. That's my opinion. What are you thinking about this, Jeff?
Well, I agree. I think that it's another example of a company that has a lot of users and a lot of usage on a free application.
Yeah.
And that if they had charged for the application, they wouldn't have 7 million users on it. People are using it because they don't have to pay for it. And so when you don't have to pay for it, whether you like it or not, you might do it because it's kind of quirky and kind of fun. And I mean, I'm not so much of a fan of the pictures taken by Instagram. I would rather see regular pictures than ones that are modified in that way. Aside from, you see some that are taken that look quite good like that, but for the most part, I personally don't find a huge benefit from it. But it's a free application, so I have downloaded it and I have tried it. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to spend any money on it. And there's a lot of people that would say, oh, well, for occasional usage, fine, I'll use it. But am I going to pay $1 or $2 or $5 or whatever for occasional usage? No, they're not willing to pay that. So I think it's almost, I don't know if it's the case study, but it's certainly one of the best case studies of providing an application that lots of people like to use, but not yet figuring out how to derive revenue from it. And when they do try and figure out how to derive revenue from it, if they truly haven't come up with a strategy yet. Now, I won't discount the fact that there's lots of companies that, if they're run by smart people, say, I know what my goal is for generating revenue. I just know that I can't actually do it yet because I need a significant user base to make the value of my product high enough for someone to spend money on it.
7 million people.
But that's 7 million users.
Yeah.
Right? When you connect in the application, if I'm using it, that doesn't advantage you, and you using it doesn't advantage me, because it's a personal application in which you get benefited by sharing some pictures. But unlike a social game in which the best designed social games, free users add value to paid users on it, Instagram isn't that kind of a social sharing application. It's a social sharing application in which it's cool for you to use it, and the people that see you using it get benefited of it.
Yep.
But having 1 million or 7 million people using it doesn't add value to you to make you spend more money on Instagram than you would normally. And that's where I think that they have a problem that I don't quite see, how they see a massive user base as a benefit for revenue generation aside from something like advertising, which is just an eyeballs-based revenue generation.
But they've publicly said that, listen, they don't want to ruin the experience, and this is that the purification of developers. I don't want to ruin the experience of the app by putting advertising in it.
Exactly. So it's a good app, and it's a good example of making an app that people like, but it's also a good example of making an app that's hard to actually make money from. And so I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Absolutely. They say that this is a great. There's a great article on Read Write Web by John Mitchell, and this was posted August 3rd, where it says that it's a crowded space, but it's also unclear how viable the company will prove to be in the long run. There doesn't seem to be a clear path to monetization. I mean, they haven't moved into the web. They're unfazed by this. It says, the article goes on to say, but what it says is that it's kind of like Instagram doesn't seem to be interested in building a great experience, or they're more interested in building a great experience than they are in building a great revenue base. And that's one of the challenges. And some of the comments, in that thread is like, Yes, it makes no money, baby. Oh yeah, keep adding them users. And that's the kind of way that I feel, is that, what's the point? After how many users does it take? Like, after how many boxes or how many old, bags of kitty litter do I have to keep in my basement before I'm actually hoarding? And it's like, look, I got 7 million bodies stuffed in the basement. I'm hoarding them. But if I can't turn $1 on them, there's no value to those 7 million people. All it's doing is costing me network usage. It's costing me server and infrastructure, people costs. People are, there's investors that have put money into this. So I'm not saying that they're not smart. I'm just saying, like, there's got to be a way to make money. And man alive, I hope that we don't see many more of these kind of companies that are out there doing this. There are companies that are making money off of the Instagram ecosystem. I think there are 10,000 or 15,000 companies that have leveraged the open API that Instagram has put out there. Companies like Postagram, where they've allow you to take your Instagram photos and create a really unique pop-out postcard. And I've ordered one of these things. They're great. And they charge you 99 cents, and that's fully delivered to your door. And then there are other companies that have, that allow you to take your Instagram photos and make a photo book out of them, and they charge you $20, and they'll send you a photo book of your photos, or even magnets. So there's value, but if the company that's building it isn't making any money, and the companies that are building on the ecosystem are making money, I think that that's a big problem as well. I don't know if I see that.
It's a good problem to have, though. Like, having a 7 million users where nobody's making money off them,
yeah,
that's a really bad problem.
Yeah.
Having 7 million users where some people have figured out a way to make money off them gives you a couple of options. Now, Instagram could kind of go, you know what? All right, we're going to build Postagram features right into Instagram.
Well, why don't they buy them?
Or, well, why would you? I mean, why would you spend the money that Postagram is going to say they're worth instead of building such a service yourself? Or saying to Postagram, hey, why don't you give us 2 cents for every postcard that you send out based on Instagram, and we won't build it into our application ourselves. Basically, start licensing the access to those 7 million users. Yep. So say, okay, yeah, there may be 500 companies that are building off of Instagram, most of which are not making enough money to pay for licensing.
I don't think anybody's making enough money.
But you pick 4 or 5 of them that are making enough, and you agree to support them. You contractually agree to support them for a fee based on the service they're doing, and then you close down your API. And you say, oh yeah, I got 5 companies making money off of it. There's a viable user base here. You want access to it. This is the price, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a possible viable solution. But at which point, how many users do you need before you can start doing that? How many companies do you need to show business models off of your infrastructure do you need before you start doing that? Because you're not making billions of dollars off of like 2 or 3 cents off of those Postagram things, right? So I don't know how much Postagram is making per sale, but they're paying for shipping and printing and all sorts of stuff. So they're not making like 50 cents for every one of those. They're in the pennies for that. So even if they had to pay 1 or 2 cents per, that's going to seriously cut into their viability as a business.
Yep.
So you have to look at that and say, well, okay, if that's the case, if my developers on it that are there can't make money on it by paying a cost to use the system, do I have to buy my developers to make money? Well, if I have to buy my developers at a ratio of what they're making to what they think they're worth, in the end, I'm not going to make money off it either, because I'm going to spend too much money purchasing them to actually make revenue off of it.
Well, whatever these guys are going to do, 7 million people, a base of 7 million people, you should be able to generate some income from that. And you kind of want to, my feeling is that you want to start testing that right away, because you want to know if this is something that's viable. And obviously, to get as much money as they did, brought in, invested in, and the number of users that they've got, there's got to be something there that they can do. And my hope is that there is as innovative as the company once was when it came to applying these filters on a 612 by 612 size image and creating some value there.
I wish that at some point some of these companies that pitched to their initial investors would release the initial presentations they made to get money out of them. It'd just be really interesting to see, not from a like I want to criticize what they're saying standpoint, because at that point you don't know. You want to see what the vision was back on day one, and versus okay, now they've got 2 years in, now there's 7 million users. What their vision is now has probably changed, but I'd be really interested for some of these companies just to see what the pitch was to the investors, to say what at that point were they saying that was going to generate them a value to equate to what they were asking for money-wise.
Well, yeah. I just wonder if there's ever any, my hope upon hopes is that there's always a business model in those business plans that they're pitching. Because if there isn't, And then if all you're trying to do is spend your money to build a mailing list, then you've done that. Good for you. I don't know what you do with that. But again, let me be very clear here, is that I love this product. I use it every day. I'm not sure it's a business at all, but I love the product. I use it pretty much every day, as Jeff can attest to. And I mean, it makes me look as cute as my kids. Is that? All right, before we get into our third story, I want to talk about our last sponsor. 3 sponsors on the show. Man, look, we're full. You guys, anybody out there who wants to sponsor the show, come on in. We'll put you on the waiting list, I suppose, now. This is a company called AppLeads. We've talked about these guys before. These guys, AppLeads is a program done by Pontiflex. They power a new category of mobile advertising called sign-up ads. It's non-intrusive. Users can sign up for ads within your app itself. It doesn't take people out. It doesn't make you click into a browser and destroying the app experience. It just allows you to sign up within the app itself. And they enable really the developers to provide a great matchup, for their customer base about ads that they might be interested in. These are top branded ads. It's a better user experience, and it's completely respectful of privacy. I don't think I've mentioned that before. It's very the focus is on privacy. Revenue from apps from the Pontiflex app leads is anywhere from 10x to 100x times the actual other comparables for eCPMs. It's available on Android and iPhone, and you can do this right away. It's an embeddable piece of code that allows you to actually set it up very quickly. We love free apps. We love applications. We love developers like Instagram, for example, to actually benefit from ad networks so that they can actually release new versions of their applications going forward. We want you guys to make some money. This is one of the opportunities for you guys to do that. Check out appleads.com. We love the fact that they support us, as with all of our sponsors, but we also love the fact that they support the developer community and allow you to make some money from your hard-earned work. So go to appleads.com and wherever you can, let them know that you found out about AppLeads from us here at Two Guys on Mobile or on Tether.tv. Very quickly to install. So thank you guys for sponsoring us, and we appreciate the support. AppLeads.com. Last story, quick story here. Talking about app developers. There's an IDC report that just came out with actually Appcelerator that talked about app makers relying more on repeat users to make their cash, and this is something that I think is the maturation of the market, where they're saying a lot of companies or a lot of app makers are going back to their existing users, those guys that have installed the applications or games, and going back to them looking for additional revenue, and that makes sense to me. It's easier to keep a customer happy than to go out and find a new customer. So this shouldn't be surprising to anybody at this point, should it, Jeff?
No, I mean, back when I was at Magmic and we were running BPlay, our existing customer base was ones where we knew they had made a purchase before.
Yeah.
So that decision was already off the table. They were comfortable making a purchase, and they were interested in our content. And we would definitely be promoting and trying to mine those customers. We want to gain customers as well, but those customers, the existing customers that you have in your store, those ones get your newsletters. Those ones you can market to. Those are the ones that you have gotten past that first stage of, am I willing to spend money on your product or your service? And so I think it just makes sense that that knowledge and that behavior is extended onto games and software itself. It's really the retail extension to actual games, right? It's from developers moving from just developing to understanding some of the marketing that goes behind retaining customers when you have a long life for your customer. Products in the past, lots of them people sell them and you don't have a direct relationship with your customers because that's via the distributor or the retailer or whoever. And now that you can have a much more direct relationship, I do think it's just an evolution of the fact that developers now are understanding more how to keep in touch with their customers and monetize them long term.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things is that without the big thing about this was in-app purchasing, right? Which was the freemium model in-app purchasing, and with a one-time purchase, Apple owned that relationship. right? It wasn't you that had direct access to them. You could try, and I know Magmic did this, try many ways to get them to sign up for newsletters or get them to, you know, market your other products. But with in-app purchasing and you know, the in-app mechanisms and NFC coming into these devices and cloud connectivity, all of a sudden you've got many ways to communicate. And push technology, so a message push that is coming in iOS and is already available, like with Urban Airship and those guys. There's many more opportunities for you to interact with them. I downloaded an Inspector Gadget game because I like Inspector Gadget. I play it all the time. It's got a weakness. No, my kids want to play this, and every once in a while I'll be in a meeting and a little Inspector Gadget little pop-up, I can't disable it, so I had to delete the game, will pop up and say, hey, did you know Penny's in trouble? You know, get brain and go and run. But that kind of interaction drove me crazy while I'm in the meeting and the presentation is up on the screen and that pops up. But pretty funny. Good laugh all the time. But that kind of interaction wasn't there before. And it's just about to get even better as you know, iOS 5 rolls out with, you know, their improved notifications, iCloud, and integration with Twitter even, and even certainly reminders and iMessage. So these are things that are going to drive that. But really nothing really striking that. But I love this. It's kind of like the maturity. The lights are going on. It's not about mass accumulation of users. It's about finding those core users at the beginning and generating the revenue from there. I don't know what else we can say about that. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the difference that people are seeing now is the ease of repeat purchasing. As you say, Apple brought in the in-app purchasing as a major source of revenue, but that was just easing the repeat purchasing. It doesn't change the need to communicate with your customers. It doesn't add the ability to do that communication. Developers are learning how to do that so that the second game they release, they can take advantage of those customers rather than just in a single game. But it's absolutely it was an impetus for developers to learn that. The market changing, iTunes and everything has been an impetus for developers to have marketing teams and marketing companies working with them. And I think that ultimately it does benefit consumers because it gives them the ability to communicate with and be involved with companies and products that they like versus getting a Feature Shop ad and seeing 500 different products in it and having to scour through it to find something that you might be interested in. So ultimately, I think it's good for everybody. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's summarized so perfectly by Scott Schwarzhoff, who's the VP of Marketing for Appcelerator. He says that apps are becoming vehicles for constant engagement, cloud connectivity, and reusable utilities. And that's really what it is. It's about that constant engagement side that we're talking about here, is that if you convince me to use the product over and over and over again, I'll be more susceptible to purchase. You know, some interesting findings that we'll just round out this is that, you know, one of the big things that certainly Gigome pointed out about this report was that the business models that people are moving to in application transactions in 2011 to 2012 are certainly in-app purchasing versus app stores. So an increase in in-app purchasing versus a decrease in app stores. An increase in mobile commerce, you know, not as clearly defined, but also an increase in NFC by a significant amount. And I think the NFC is really key, and that's what we're starting to see. And maybe that's where RIM can, you know, from our first story, RIM can start to dominate because they are I mean, when the Bold 9900 comes out, it'll be the second device that has NFC baked in behind the Nexus S, right? And that's a pretty significant play. Who knows if that's a market yet, but we're seeing that. So really interesting study by IDC and Appcelerator. And you can find information, obviously, at appcelerator.com. Or IDC's website, but it's very prominent on appcelerator.com. Go and check that out. We'll have a link up above this video, kind of right up.
But what I don't really get, though, is when they say NFC is a business model, they don't really say what that is. I'm not sure what NFC as a business model really means in terms of it growing from 13% now to 27% in a quarter. Like,
you know,
I don't really get what that means.
But it could be something like Angry Birds is leveraging an NFC on the Nexus S to open up levels. So it's not about commerce as much as it is about well, I guess it would be driving commerce. Like I could see it like an NFC-enabled location. Say I'm working on Angry Birds is working with Starbucks, and Starbucks has an NFC reader. I check in or I scan my NFC, and it opens up a level, a Starbucks targeted level that I can play while I'm at Starbucks. That kind of stuff of Angry Birds.
But okay, so technically you're using NFC, but that business model is called advertising.
Yeah, but
That's not called
supported
NFC.
by NFC. You're right. But it's
It's like saying my business model is the screen because that's what I show advertisements on. Like that's the exact corollary to what you just said.
Yeah.
So
my business is electricity.
Yeah, exactly. So what people are saying and what they're asking those questions and what they're trying to promote there, you got to take a little bit with a grain of salt, because I don't think people quite understand when they say business model necessarily, or when they're asking these questions, what that really means. And your business model isn't the technology you're using. The business model is how you're making money.
Yeah, and I think that I mean they handle that by saying that, listen, nobody knows what NFC business model is. NFC is an enabler, I guess is what you're saying, Jeff, as opposed to anything. And you know, we don't even know what this is going to be. We always said at the very beginning that this 2011 was going to be. They said at the very beginning of 2011, this is going to be the year of NFC. We're August 8th, and we have a single phone that has an NFC chip in it. And maybe by September, with a 9900 from RIM, the Bold 9900 will have two smartphones with NFC. So I can count those on two fingers, and that's not an industry that is being made right now. And I think that that's one of the things we're seeing. But there is a lot of buzz around NFC, but there's probably an interim play between them. Nevertheless, I think this is a really interesting glimpse into how companies are going to start to use or are looking at how they can actually generate revenue from their inventions. And maybe if you're still listening to this, if anybody from Instagram is listening to this, maybe give it a consideration that there are companies out there that are looking at generating revenue from their applications and their user base. And some of these guys...
Instagram, go use NFC as your business model.
That's right. That's right. Can you take pictures with NFC? I think so. We'll do it. And yeah, I'm going to assume that NFC was in their investor pitch too. We'll be using NFC. We'll leverage it. Anyway, those are the big three. Got RIM OS 7 and 5 new devices. What does it mean? What does it matter? We think it's good, but is it great? Who knows? Instagram and hoarding 7 million users and 150 million photos. Go get a business model, I think is the theme there. And the last one is our app makers are relying on the return user, which is really great. It's called engagement and brand and customer loyalty. We like that. And more and more of that. Just make great products. That's what we're asking for. 3 stories, 2 guys on mobile, episode number 24. What else could you ask for, Jeff? So that's it for episode number 24, Jeff. We'll be around, I think, next week. Here's hoping. Maybe Mondays are a better day for us to get this done. We don't want to overdo these episodes. We want to make sure that they're relevant, they have newsworthy bites, and it's something that has a little bit of a longer stamp than kind of a this week in. So hopefully you found some value. Give me some feedback at untether@gmail.com. And you can follow myself at Rob Woodbridge on Untether, or on that thing called Twitter. Go to untether.tv. You can follow Jeff at the Suave Hog on Twitter, or go to bacononthego.com for all of his insights into the mobile industry. Jeff, thanks, man.
Good to see you again.
Yes, it's been so long. And good to see you guys again. We'll see you next week or next time on 2 Guys on Mobile. Thanks for watching.